We find our stories fascinating, and so should you. What have you got for topics this week?
So then there's Siam and Carmel.
All right. Well, there's lots of memories of especially Siam. Siam lived a lot longer than Carmel did, and she was, as a child, I think she was always there as long as I could remember. And then she died when I was 22, maybe 23. So she lived a really long life, but she was a Siamese cat that
Now she was not fully Siamese.
well, I don't know.
But she wasn't full.
Which is, I think it's really important to note that, because Siamese cats have I've learned this, they have a horrible reputation. People hate Siamese cats. They say they're very mean and ill-tempered, which has always been weird to me because Siam was the opposite. But I just think it's important that she was not a typical Siamese cat, apparently.
It's funny because I did a search just now and I see pictures that just look exactly like Siam for Siamese. But I always assumed that she had something else in there.
Yeah, there's no way we'd ever know.
But of course, breed has exceptions. So she was an amazing cat, and we got her when she was a kitten, along with Carmel. I don't think they were related. I don't remember.
No way. Yeah, definitely
Well,
not.
but I have two cats that are completely different, and the vet tells me that they're different fathers for sure, but they came out of the same mom at the same time. But anyway, we got them as kittens, and we were pretty hands-on, and they just got used to it. So they were pretty tame, but Siam much more so than Carmel. Carmel was always a little standoffish. And then I don't remember how long we had Carmel. She got killed by some dogs behind the house.
That neighborhood is not a good place for a cat to be. And it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. It's like when I was there just this past weekend, and there's something weird about Camp Luna. Actually, it's not just Camp Luna, it's Vegas.
No, but Camp Luna is considerably worse though. Dogs.
Maybe it is, but it's like you have to have a mean dog if you want to live in Camp Luna. Like it's a rule or something.
Yeah. Everyone's got at least one, and sometimes 3 or 4, and they're just trying to get off their chains and come and get you. It's like a third world country. Years ago, I went for a bike ride, and I just got surrounded by like a pack of 15 dogs, and I couldn't go anywhere, and I had to fend them off until somebody noticed that I needed some help.
Our parents, sometimes they can't even walk down certain streets because the dogs are loose. And
well, and they've had experiences where they're just walking their dogs, and a dog comes out and just ravages one of the dogs, and they have to take it to the vet.
Yeah.
I mean, what the fuck? Yeah.
A lot of dogs have died. From being attacked by other dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But getting back to the cats, my memories of Siam was that she was just forever patient. It would snow, and it would be a good snow, like maybe 2 feet. And it would be drifted. So in some parts of the yard, there would be piles of snow, maybe 5 feet deep. And we would go and get Siam and throw her way up in the air, right above one of these drifts. And there would just be this outline of a cat, like a cartoon, just into the snowdrift. And then like 60 seconds later, she would come out and on the other side of the drift and try to make it to the house. And of course, she couldn't go very fast because the snow was deep. So we would grab her and do it again.
And the cruelty.
Yeah. There's just something about being a kid and picking on animals. It's just the laughter that you get out of it is just uncontrollable.
But I really think that if she had been, really scared or really meowing or trying to scratch us, that we would have stopped. We loved her, but she was kind of like, okay, whatever, one more time. She just seemed, and you could also hold her by her tail. You could just hold her, and she would just hang there. She wouldn't. I think as I recall, you had to there for a little while before she would kind of make a little. And so she was just so docile, and I don't think we abused her exactly, but that wasn't very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, she was an amazing cat, and she was with us a long time.
I often tell the girls about Siam because they're in love with the cats that we have, and so there's some similarities. We have a boy cat that's kind of, yes, not as laid back, but he's pretty cool with whatever we want to do. And he had an abscess the other day, and I had to hold him down and get a Q-tip and stick it a good inch into under his skin. And he just totally laid there for it. He just didn't even make any noise. He was like, okay, whatever. So I sometimes bring up Siam because of all that. And my main memory of her in the later years was that she got this green snot. She was still very cuddly, so she would get on your lap and she would let you pet her, and she would just be looking at you. And then there would be no warning at all, and she would sneeze and just blast you in the face with this.
Well, okay, so I definitely remember the sneeze with no warning, but I don't know about the green snot.
I agree. I agree. I don't remember that either. I do remember
Maybe it was only one period, but because at that point I was living far from home, so I only got to see her a couple times a year. And I always wondered if she remembered me, if she knew who I was. But I think she did.
Yeah, she was a sweet cat.
She was just so patient and so affectionate. She loved to sit on your lap and be petted. She would do it for hours.
Oh yeah, yeah. And we have theories that why did she live so long? Mom used to stretch her out and just like give her little exercises because she put up with it. And we have theories that maybe that's why she lived so long. I don't know. There's just
But yeah, and Mom called it her exercises, and she would get the cat and she would get the back legs in one hand and the front legs in the other and just stretch.
Yeah.
And the cat would just hang there like a hammock,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't remember that at all, but I see why you guys like torture Siam so much, because you learned it from Mom.
It's kind of surprising now that I think about it, but Mom had this theory that it was good for her.
I just want to say that when she died, there was other things going on in the house, so it wasn't nearly as sad as it would have been normally, I think.
Oh yeah.
Because it was at the time when Mom invited this battered woman and if they had one or two kids, I can't remember, but
two,
to live with us for a while, and that was stressful on the whole family. And so that happened to be right at the time when they were living with us. And I think Siam pretty much gave out the day they were leaving.
The next one I have is hauling hay.
All right, David Cruz. We all experienced it. I think that it was probably pretty close to the worst work I've ever done, because it wasn't only hard work, but it was hot and it was itchy. And especially being in a hot barn, stacking or unstacking and that kind of stuff was just miserable. And it seemed endless at the time. It's just one of those things where you'd have to push yourself really hard to get through it. It was rough. But I think for somebody who's used to it, it's not a big deal. But we never did it on a regular basis. So it wasn't, so it was hard on us when we did. But I can talk about a time that the very last time I did it, I think I was in my late 20s, and I wanted to redeem myself. I met David.
Why did you need to redeem?
I just didn't feel like I had performed that great, years before, I guess. Or there was a time that he yelled at me a bunch and I just got really tired of it. And I said, I'm going home. And so I wanted to redeem myself this time. And I was supposed to go down to Roswell, and he said, "Well, meet me in Santa Rosa, and we'll get some work done real quick, and then you can go on to Roswell." So I met him there, I don't know, maybe at 5:30 in the morning, and he bought me some of that Allsup's chicken, and we drove out somewhere not too far from Santa Rosa. It was maybe an hour and a half or so. But he had two trucks, and Tommy Crawford was driving the other truck, and we got there and we had to unload both these trucks into the barn out there that was horribly hot. And this Tommy Crawford guy was a very impressive worker. He was, and I was just determined to keep up with him. So I pushed myself like crazy. We got both trucks done. It took us about 13 hours. And then he took me to a truck stop in Santa Rosa after that. And it was already dark. And they put that chicken fried steak in front of me. And I was just, I could not eat anything because I was just absolutely sick. So I ended up going back home, and he paid me $65 for 13 hours. Oh man. Yeah, it was probably the worst. It was the worst. That's my latest story. What do you guys have?
What is your recollection, Ben?
I only did it once, I think. And yeah, it was incredibly hard. You guys built it up though, so I was super prepared. But I think it was kind of like a rite of passage, if anything. But yeah, everything. I mean, yeah, it was incredibly hard work. However long it was not 13 hours long. I knew that, but it was long enough, and it was rough. One of the things that I remember about it is I was just, I was obviously working as hard as I could, but it was hot and all that, and the barn was full of, like, the air was thick of hay, and you were just breathing it in. And there was a snake, a good sized snake. I don't know if it was a rattlesnake or what, but it was a good sized snake on one of the bales, and I was just highly concerned about it. And David told me just to put a bale on top of it, keep on going. And I just couldn't. I was just thinking there was snakes everywhere, and I couldn't relax because the rest. I mean, not that I would be relaxed anyway, but it was very hard for me to not think about a snake between every bale. And
I couldn't relax. I was just sitting there, my lazy boy, and I just couldn't relax.
That's all I really remember. I don't know how much I made. I don't remember how much I made. Yeah, I mean, more. I think when it was over, you don't pay me anything. I just gift enough that it's over.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about all that. I think in some ways, I think my initial theory was that he was making it harder on us as kind of a way to show off like how hard he works, and also to sort of give us this lesson in life. This is what happens if you don't get an education or thing. I don't know. But I went on a couple of runs where the other guys just weren't able to keep up, and man, he went ballistic and just shouted at them, and one of them like really hurt himself, fell backwards on that elevator that has the spikes. There was this like crappy, hard to explain, but it's like a long ladder that has a little motor and a big chain, and it is built with spikes, so it would lift the bales up, and he was distracted or tired or probably lightheaded, and he just fell backwards on it and got one of those spikes in his back. And David was just pissed and yelling at him. And then I thought that maybe he was extra hard on me because I was family and because he was showing off. But after I saw the way he treated the other guys, I thought actually maybe he was a little easy on me.
But I think that he could tell if you were really trying and if you were just being lazy. And if you were really trying, you were really pushing, I think he was much less likely to lose patience with you. He would lose patience if you were slacking off, if you were being lazy,
or if you were doing it the dumb way. Like he would get on your case if you were if your technique was bad.
I think we hauled hay many times. You know what I mean? Like there was with lots of different people. And one time that Jackson guy was there and he was just such a huge man. And he had a hook and he would just kind of put his knee against one end of the bale and grab the other end with a hook and kind of put him on that elevator. And he just made it look so easy. It was amazing. Just seemed like a robot. I mean, he wouldn't even break a sweat after hours doing it, from what I remember.
I learned a lot from David. I learned, that I could push myself beyond when I thought I would be able to.
Yeah, that's how I felt. Yeah.
And many times in my life, I've been in a situation where I'm really super tired or whatever. And I remember, well, this is not as bad as hauling hay. And I just keep on going. And sure enough, I don't die.
Right.
So that's it's a good lesson.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of stuff he did that was so unnecessary. And my favorite example is he woke me up at 5 o'clock in the morning or something. And he had this leftover cake. It was like one of these sheet chocolate cake. And he just made me eat like half of this cake. Said, you're going to need the energy. You're going to need the energy. And so I ate nothing but cake at 5 o'clock in the morning. And then we drove for a few hours. And then we're out in the sun. And then he was really stingy with water. You remember that? He would not let you have water because he would say, you're going to get waterlogged.
There's no such thing. There's no such thing as waterlogged. What the heck is he talking about?
I don't know if I remember that. I don't know if that's true or not.
You know what it probably was is you would have to pee maybe, and that would take away from the time. I don't know.
Maybe, but I don't think
no water.
You're gonna sweat it out. You're not gonna pee it out, man. Nothing's coming out your penis.
There's no, but I mean, what is this waterlogged business? That's old wives' tale.
Well, it's not I mean, if you really chug a lot, then you could get waterlogged,
but I mean, you're dealing with high heat and high output. Like it's really important to stay hydrated. And instead, he's like, here's a bunch of chocolate cake and no water.
I don't think you could drink too much. I really don't.
Well, in David's defense, though, he never asked us to do anything that he wouldn't do himself.
That is true.
Yeah.
And he would just
believe for himself. He believes for you. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that is true. And he would pack I don't know. It was like a cooler, like a thermos, like one of these igloo things, one of these circular things, and maybe it could hold 1.5 gallons or 2 gallons, and that would be it for everybody on the truck all day. So he had to ration it, but why not just bring more water?
Right. Well, I think it was just a different time when they didn't believe that much water was necessary. I guess.
Well, and you don't want to get waterlogged. That's important.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I just feel like that those experiences, even though most of it wasn't pleasant, it was still a good life's lesson that taught us to push ourselves or consider maybe we learned what we don't want to do our whole lives, or maybe we just always go back to saying, okay, well, at least I'm not hauling hay.
No, it didn't hurt us at all. It was there.
Yeah. And we learned a lot, I mean, like when somebody's down on the next deck, you don't throw the bale unless they're already looking at you. You know what I mean? Like those kind of things, or using a bale to set it there and bump it so it would roll farther to get closer to the stack. Things like that. It never turned out to be something that I'd always want to do. And I'm glad that a lot of people are moving on to a different technology where bigger bales, where it's handled by equipment,
Well, it was a little crazy that all that was manual labor. And you're making me laugh with that. The memory of being done at the end of the day, because I remember one time he paid me $50, which was a lot of money to me back then. And I was kind of in heaven, like driving back to Vegas. I was just like, I got $50 in my pocket and I'm not lifting any more bales today.
Sure. I think that makes plenty of sense. I mean, it's just a relief.
it's also interesting. His pay scale was very it varied a lot. Okay. Like if he called me and said, I'd like you to come out and clean the horse trailer, and I came out and did it, then he would pay me pretty well, maybe $45. That took me half a day. But if I happen to be there to visit and the trailer is just sitting there and it's dirty, and then he has me clean it out, then it would maybe be $10. Big difference. So there was a lot of work to be done out there, and I guess that's a good thing. It kept him very active all his life. You certainly can't accuse the man of being lazy.
Also making me think that both Grandpa and David had this attitude that if family's visiting, then that's an opportunity to do some chores.
That is so interesting to me, because I don't know, in a way I feel like, what else are we going to do? You know what I mean? Work is a part of a family bonding. I think it's okay. I just had a conversation with Dad a couple hours ago. I asked, what did you remember most about going to Springer? He said, oh, he would arrange it so that there was going to be work to be done, and he would work us so hard. We had to brand cattle, and I had to get behind him and get the calves to go through the chute. And sometimes they'd get turned around and it'd be a big mess, and he would yell at us. And I guess we did have a little bit of those times, but it just wasn't, I don't know. I don't think it's such a bad thing, I guess. If it's kind of like, I'll help you and you help me, and we don't worry about any money being exchanged. It's okay. I don't have too much of a problem with it, unless I was used as a slave labor, where it's always just a one-way street and I'm always having to help, but you're not helping me back in my place, So
well, I think that it's important to remember that a lot of those memories had to have been before maybe even you guys were born. The grandpa was a lot younger, and I'm sure he mellowed out a lot. I don't know if you guys remember any of that. I don't remember.
Oh, I certainly, yeah, I remember doing the cattle and we even did a hay deal, but I had a great time because I was just a little kid. I was only maybe 6 or 7, and they had me driving the tractor, and everybody else was loading the bales onto the trailer behind me. So that was, I was okay with it.
Yeah, heck yeah. But I think it's just one of those things where I sympathize with Dad, because I think that obviously he comes from a different family structure and all that, and working on the farm wasn't his thing. But also I think that, and I'm not saying Grandpa would have taken advantage. I think he would have offered, he would have been happy to come help with whatever projects Dad had.
It's weird because I got yelled at a lot by Grandpa, but for some reason I just never took it personally, because I just knew that's just the way he was. One summer I got yelled at the most is the pier out at the pond had been kind of disassembled, and we decided we're going to go out there and work on it. And there was this H-shaped structure that we were going to place down and just try to get the posts down in the mud as much as we could, and then lay the boards on top of that so that we could continue moving the deck, the pier out farther into the pond. I was trying to get it in place, and he was standing at the edge of the one before that, and he was yelling at me like, what is, you're just goofing off, he was yelling at me, and he just got sick of it because I couldn't get it to stand up straight because I'm in the water doing this. And he says, oh, well, I'm going to do it myself. So he gets in there and he's working out for a couple of minutes, and then he totally loses control of it and he falls completely in the water. And I couldn't stop. I just couldn't help but to laugh. And then we both kind of started laughing, and it was just like such a relief, because it's like, okay, he's not mad anymore. It was just it was the greatest. I was kind of glad that he went to, and he had his irrigation boots, and we got out of the water, and just like he had to empty out his irrigation boot just full of water. It was so funny. Oh man.
Yeah, those boots really don't keep the water out once you get them all the way in the water. I think that it's important to mention that David was working to live. Like he had a very strong work ethic, and he was deadly serious about it. And he was trying to put food on the table, and he wasn't messing around. Grandpa was more like, this is just family time. Like,
Yeah.
let's find something to do. It wasn't the same pressure at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, yes, we did get yelled at, but it was never, I don't know. It was just, it was different. It was not nearly as stressful, I guess. But somehow I always just kept that bond with David, because I feel like he taught me a lot. So, respect.
Grandpa
Yeah.
must have mellowed out a lot, as people do as they get older. I don't have any memory of him ever yelling at me.
He honestly only yelled at me one time that I can remember, and it had nothing to do with work. But he got irritated with me, but we just had a different relationship, I think, because he could get irritated with me, and then he would get it kind of quiet. And that was as bad as if he yelled at me. I would have preferred the yelling.
One more thing I just wanted to say real quick. One thing about Grandpa is that I don't think a lot of people understood that Grandpa was, when he yelled at you, that was kind of like a punishment. But once that punishment is done, he's over it. Like he was totally over it.
Yeah.
Like nothing, he's not going to yell at you again. It's dealt with. It's over.
And he was as much saying, I'm just pissed off. It wasn't really.
Yeah. He was a great man. I mean, really.
Yeah, he was. I want to just quickly tell a story I remember about him and the pond while we're talking about it. I went out to see him, and he was in his late 70s at this point. I was probably 26 or something. And I had a motorcycle, and I rode up to Springer one day on a summer day to visit them. And I don't know what I was picturing. I just had in mind just like kicking back and drinking lemonade and talking and of course Grandpa had different plans. So he took me down to the pond, and we had to do something. He wanted me to climb into the water. I had to leave in an hour, and it was getting dark, and I didn't have a jacket, and I was on a motorcycle, and I was just picturing being on a motorcycle wet for an hour, and the temperature dropping and it being miserable. So I said, well, I can't really get wet. And instead of yelling at me, he just kind of pushed me aside and just got into the water himself. And so he had to do, the 80-year-old man has to do what the 25-year-old kid can't do. And he didn't get mad, but it was kind of like, this is ridiculous. And of course, I could have just, now that I think about it, I could have just stripped down, or, I didn't have to get my clothes wet to do this job, but he wouldn't have cared. He was still robust and healthy and doing stuff like that. He was almost 80.